All right, thank you so much. Welcome to another episode of the award-winning Sales Game Changers podcast. My name is Fred Diamond. I'm the founder of the Institute for Effective Professional Selling. Julie, of course, we rebranded on May 1st, 2025. We were the Institute for Excellence in Sales, and now we're all getting used to saying Institute for Effective Professional Selling, IEPS. This is a special episode of the Sales Game Changers podcast. It's the Marketing for Selling Effectiveness show that we do with Julie Murphy from Sage Communications. And Julie, this is the third show that we're doing. Every other Tuesday, we're posting a brand new show where we're talking about the convergence that must be happening with sales leadership and marketing leadership. And it's historically been siloed. It's historically been a conundrum. But now, again, we're doing today's interview in July of 2025. It's our third show. The first show, we did some introductions. The second show, we had Gina Stracuzzi, who runs the Center for Elevating Women in Sales Leadership, participate. And today we're going to be introducing Zhenia Klevitsky in a few moments here, where we're going to bring on an actual VP of sales to talk about things that she's done in her career to bring things together. Before I bring on Julie Murphy, I want to remind people that if you want to read this transcript or listen to previous shows, we're well over 780 shows. Go to salesgamechangerspodcast.com and search Julie Murphy, and you'll find all of the Marketing for Selling Effectiveness shows. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, thanks. Go up, give us a 5-star review. And if you're watching this on YouTube, go up and give us a thumbs up. So, Julie, this is our third show.
Yes, and I couldn't be more excited to bring on our very first sales leader guest, Zhenia Klevitsky, currently Chief Growth Officer at ITC Federal, and she has been a personal friend and client for almost 20 years. She's one of the best in the business when it comes to leading high growth teams, especially in government contracting. Worked with companies big and small, from ASRC Federal to Sev1 Tech, and as I said, now she's at ITC Federal. So welcome, Zhenia. We're so excited to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm so excited to speak with you both.
No, we're excited too. So why don't you get us started here, Zenia? What does ITC Federal do, and what is your role there?
Sure. So ITC Federal really drives transformation and application development, DevSecOps, cloud deployment and infrastructure automation, and federal financial systems. So those are our capabilities, but our approach is always mission first. That's what the company was founded on, and we're always trying to find innovative ways to harness the power of technology across the broad spectrum of government missions and domain areas. You can see that all across our contracts within the Department of Homeland Security and Department of Justice. And my role at ITC Federal is the Chief Growth Officer, as Julie mentioned, which means in our firm, really responsible for leading growth across business development, capture, solution architecture, marketing, and proposals.
Yeah, that's great. And Jenya, I know that you've been in this government contracting community for most of your career, and it's a very sort of niche space. And I'm really curious, what do you love the most about sort of sales leadership in this government and technology space?
I think the thing that I love the most about government and the technology space is that it's both extremely challenging, but on the flip side, it's extremely rewarding. So, first and foremost, we're not just selling services or software to the government. We are really helping agencies solve problems that impact mission. For us at ITC Federal, that's in the national security space, but other mission areas can include public health, infrastructure, the warfighter. That sense of mission alignment is really hard to match in the private sector, in my opinion. So I really love that we are able to give back in a way in government consulting. The other thing that I love about government is that it's not just sales, it's not just transactional, it's strategic. So every deal involves complex procurements, complex cycles, everything from really needing to understand the FAR or the Federal Acquisition Regulations, different IDIQs or vehicles, GWACs, set-asides. There are always multiple stakeholders, whether that's the technical folks in the government or contracting, and there's always that mission aspect, that political aspect. It involves deep trusted relationships that you develop over time, like you and I, Julie, who've known each other for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
This means long-term thinking. It means integrity, consistency, skills that you don't just have cultivate as a good seller, but it makes you a better leader and partner. Because this space is so complex, I also think that mentoring rising sales leaders, account managers, capture professionals becomes a huge part of my job, for example. And the legacy of developing others while delivering results is one of the most gratifying parts, I think, of government and the technology space. It's not just the capabilities, it's the mission, it's the people, it's mentoring. There's something exciting also about bringing new technology like AI or cloud or cybersecurity to legacy heavy environments. And this being in our space allows you to be that change agent, helping government modernize.
Yeah.
You covered a lot of interesting things there. Again, we're well over 780 Sales Game Changers podcast episodes, and we've interviewed many sales leaders from large companies that have served the government, like Salesforce and Amazon and Oracle and Microsoft, et cetera. And the one thing that keeps coming back is the mission. The government customer, they're not about profits. They're really about serving the citizens, their safety, infrastructure, health, whatever it might be. And like you also mentioned, there's a lot of long-term relationships because a lot of the customers they want to work for government. They do it for the mission, and a lot of things take time. They take a lot of people involved, with that decision, which is why there's a lot of sales professionals who've been successful have had long careers serving a handful of customers, and they get to know their mission and they get to understand how they operate, et cetera. I'm just curious. So now sales and marketing needs to be much more in tune to show the government customer that. Julia, it just occurred to me. That's another reason why we're bringing sales and marketing together here.
Yeah.
Virginia, how have you seen the relationship between sales and marketing evolve through your career?
Well, thanks to Julie, I've learned a lot about marketing. And I would say that the relationship between sales and marketing, especially in government and technology sectors, has really evolved dramatically over the past decade. So, in the past, my view of sales and marketing is that it often worked in silos.
Yeah.
Marketing focused on brand, events, collateral, sales focused relationships and opportunities. Coordination was limited and the hands-off were sort of clunky. But I think it's evolved in that now there's an increased alignment around shared pipeline goals across organizations. We have account-based strategies and really data-driven insights. The best organizations operate as a revenue team, not separate departments. And I think marketing has a big role in that. So, for example, marketing is no longer about just pushing a message. It's about arming the business development or sales team with mission aligned thought leadership. We're talking a lot about mission today. Capability narratives tied to customer pain points. What is the government really trying to solve? How can things be better? Marketing is about differentiators that map to evaluation criteria in requests for proposals, for example. So we see marketing as the long road. There's content that supports early shaping with respect to opportunities and capture strategies. It's not just about awareness. It's really become this iterative loop that leads to better targeting and faster course of correction. So, in my opinion, the best sales and marketing teams really meet regularly to share insights on customer pain points and win themes and really co-developing those messages. They're not single-threaded like they used to be. It's more holistic. That's how I view it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. And what are some of the most effective ways you've seen sales and marketing collaborate to really drive those results? Because obviously you're new at ITC Federal, and so you're probably in the process right now of setting up that structure. What are some of the criteria you're going to put in place to make sure that that collaboration really drives results?
That's a great question, Julie. I think sales and marketing collaboration in government consulting or government contracting, GovCon, is most effective when it's intentional, when it's integrated, and when it's aligned to the buying process. So we now focus on what we're calling account-based marketing or ABM. for priority pursuits, for example. So business development or the sales team will identify target agencies or opportunities early on in the business development lifecycle. And then marketing will build a customized outreach related to those agencies. So for us currently, that's DHS and DOJ. And what that marketing customized outreach includes is white papers. Maybe there's a landing page specifically dedicated to an account on your website, webinars, capability briefs specific for the agency, but not just capability, but again, back to that mission need. And this shapes customer perception, in our opinion, before the competition ever comes out, before not the competition, but the RFP or even an RFI, or even before an opportunity shapes. You're already building that perception in advance. And for me, thought leadership feeds capture. So for example, executive ghostwriting or podcasts like we're doing today, speaking on panels and webinars positioned by marketing to help shape the narrative around a company's technical edge or niche capability. And then business development uses these assets to credibly engage technical and program stakeholders early in that acquisition lifecycle. Sometimes customers will reach out to us just because we've had an expert speak on a panel or a webinar or a podcast. It's really about building that snowball approach of putting everything together so the market really understands what the company's all about.
It's interesting that you bring that up because more than ever, the customer can find information. So if the customer is going to engage with sales or BD, the BD or the sales professional, they need to be talking about things that the customer specifically needs to be is focused on. And it can't be broad things like our technology will help you be more productive or our technology is great for government. It has to be specific to what that human being, right? Or those human beings, those people, specific people in the buying process need to be aware of. And there's no excuse. We say this all the time, Zhenia. We say this all the time on the Sales Game Changers podcast. There's no excuse for sales professionals who aren't speaking specifically to the customer, which is where marketing comes in by helping process the message, helping figure out the best ways to get it across. I'm just kind of curious. Do you have an example of a time when marketing, content, and awareness building all came together and directly contributed to a big or complex win?
I do. And Fred, I want to go back to something you said where you mentioned that the information is everywhere and people can find it. And the
Mhm.
example that I want to talk about is interesting because the type of information we needed to flow for an opportunity wasn't available. It wasn't something that the government could find. And I'll give you real example. I'll give you more details around that. So when I worked for another firm, we spent almost 2 years on a capture effort around an opportunity in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And that's a very tight niche community there. Um, the customer, the government and industry are very interconnected in their community. They go to church together. They do a lot together. And they didn't know us because we were in the DC area. So they couldn't find that information that typically you would find on they just see typical DC type of company integrator. So we needed to make sure our message, who we are, what we do, and what we represent really got to them. So the first thing we actually did was we ingrained ourselves in the community. We thought it was very important to get to know people for who they were, people, not just customers. And the timing was so perfect that we were trying to get into the community because at that time our firm was really exploring more ways in which we could give back from philanthropic type of ways. And we chose a specific foundation in Albuquerque, New Mexico, that we knew that we weren't just going to donate, we weren't just going to volunteer, but we would get ingrained also with the community. So it was a win-win. We got to know the individuals for the people and for us who we were. We were becoming part of that community. And back then, not sure if that's still the case today, but billboards were really big in that area. So we also invested in a billboard. And it wasn't just about we didn't make it about the capability. We really understood what resonated with that market. And so our billboard was more about how we were part of the community. We found panels for our experts to speak on that resonated with the pain points of the customer at the time. So that's when we started to kind of build around our capability set. We talked about microsites, but we launched a microsite specifically focused on Albuquerque. This customer specific case studies in terms of what they were looking for. So by the time this effort took maybe 18 to 24 months. So by the time the opportunity came out, they knew who we were. We had established ourselves not just as the next integrator, but part of the community. We understood their pain points and they knew we understood. So by the time the request for proposal RFP came out, the agency language actually closely mirrored the themes and differentiators we had been talking to them about during our campaign. And we ended up actually winning that opportunity. So at the end of the day, we came out on top because we really tried to understand and speak their language, both from being involved in the community and through the marketing aspect of it all.
Yeah, I love this example you gave because it shows how important it is to really be embedded in the community and to understand your customer, where you're talking about messaging. And one of the biggest mistakes I've seen from a messaging standpoint is if it's done in a vacuum in marketing and it's not done in collaboration with the sales teams who are actually talking to the customer day in and day out. So I would love to hear thoughts about hearing directly from the customers. How do you go about collaborating with your marketing teams to help shape the messages? And what is sales' role in the process of setting up the company positioning?
That's a great question. I think because in GovCon, the most successful growth teams aren't just pursuing opportunities, they're actively shaping the market and educating the buyer community long before the solicitation ever drops. I feel that sales teams should come together to shape messages and educate future buyers, and there's multiple ways to do that. First, I think there needs to be tight collaboration between sales, solutioning, and marketing. You want consistent strategic messaging that reflects the actual customer pain points and your differentiated value, not just siloed generic talking points. Secondly, I think that publishing and promoting insight-based education is important. It's not just, again, it's not just capability centric. It has to tie back, in my opinion, to messaging that directly supports not just the mission, but also agency strategic plans or GAO reports or inspector general findings. These often they signal funding and priorities. And when you're talking to the customer, you get that kind of information anyway. So instead of just reacting to solicitations, growth teams should proactively educate the market. We talked about hosting webinars with subject matter experts, white papers, even point of view briefs, but also participating in government industry forums. Julie, I know you and I were, especially you, but we were both part of Women in Technology, and there's APSIA and PSC and many others, not just participating, but trying to become a leader in those organizations. Use a feedback loop to constantly involve the messaging, coordinate messages by acquisition stage in the business development lifecycle, develop shared messaging libraries. I know these are more tactical things, but I think these are some of the ways that I think sales growth should come together to shape messaging to educate future buyers.
Yeah, one of the cool things, and again, we're talking with Zhenia Klevitsky here today on the Marketing for Selling Effectiveness podcast. It's a sub-brand of the Sales Game Changers podcast. Since customers have so much access to information, the sales professional, and I love the way you said before, you need to embed, right, in the community. And the reality is customers just don't need you if you're not bringing value. I've said this many, many times, the two most uttered words in the history of the Sales Game Changers podcast, number two is empathy and number one is value. And you need, as a sales professional, to be successful today. Again, we're doing today's interview in July of 2025, is you need to know where the customer is going 2 steps ahead, right, of where the customer is, because your competitor is possibly thinking that way. And you need to get really, really deep and smart and work with marketing to ensure that you get those messages across. I'm just kind of curious, we spend a lot of time trying to educate the marketing profession about what sales needs. That's a common question that we ask when we do panels. Just kind of curious, Zhenia, what's um, something you wish more marketers knew about how sales teams operate so that they could be more effective?
I think that marketers, if they understood that marketing is different, I think, in government consulting because it's a long game. Sales is a long game. It's not transactional or constantly looking for opportunities, which we are, but it's different in the commercial space where the timelines are shorter. In terms of delivery, but also the sales cycle. So it is the long game. If marketers understood the high stakes and that it's deeply relational, I think that's key. This isn't just transactional. It's about shaping opportunities months and sometimes years ahead of an RFP. It's about navigating for us complex organizational charts inside agencies and earning trust over time with technical and mission buyers and on the contracting side. So marketing content and campaigns that help us stay visible, credible, and trusted during the shaping process, I think is important for marketing to know it's not just one and done. It's a long business development life cycle. It should focus less on volume and more on targeted, sustained engagement with key accounts. And timing is everything. I think that goes without saying. But if marketing doesn't support the map to the pursuit calendar, it might be too early to shape or too late to matter. So I think these are very important. I think it's important to align campaign calendars to the procurement life cycle as well. And government contracting sales is a slow burn, trust-based and driven by timing, relationships, and credibility. We talked about that. And marketing needs to understand this becomes a true force multiplier, not just a service. Companies aren't just trying to be a service provider. So I think all of those things really is really, I think, the difference between what you see in the commercial space and the government space and being involved in that long cycle all the way through.
Yeah. And Jenya, you've been in this space now for a long time in government contracting, so I'm sure you've seen it evolve through the years. So I'd love to get your thoughts on trends you see on the horizon. So both in terms of, how has government and how has selling and marketing to government changed through the years, and what do you think is coming next?
That's another great question. I think the government buying landscape is shifting fast. We're in an unprecedented time, but at the same time, I think successful sales and marketing teams, we all need to evolve with it. I think some of the key trends that are already reshaping how both of us, both sales and marketing, um, deal with the current environment or as trends change, there are multiple things. So the first is the rise of an educated or self-directed buyer. You see these days, I feel like we see more government buyers, especially those in the that are technical and mission leaders, are really consuming industry content earlier in the process. Like Fred mentioned, information is everywhere. AI is everywhere. You can just type something in and you find information quickly. So whereas in the past, it was harder for government buyers to get that information, it's at the tip of their fingertips now. So we need to understand that and evolve with that. Engaging vendors later, often after an RFI or market research doesn't work. We have to do it long before. And so essentially marketing has to deliver credible, searchable, mission relevant content so that buyers can find things on their own because we already know that they're doing that. So we have to provide insightful information, not just information. So I think that's kind of changed, that's evolved. I think procurement cycles sometimes these days are compressing. We've seen some memos come out of DoD where they're going to be they would like to use more OTAs or commercial solution offerings, CSO and SIBRs, and those are often very compressed timelines, very quick. So we need to evolve with that. We need to be able to understand how to respond to those and market those in advance. And when technology changes so quickly, we have to be ready to shift with that. So again, it goes back to really shaping long before an opportunity even comes out. And that includes shaping, like we talked about, with thought leadership that aligns with what the government is seeking to do. We talked about account-based marketing, there's account-based everything. It seems like that's become the norm.
Yes.
Combination of those long sales cycles, the narrower buyer groups that we're seeing today, and specific agency missions, that just means that blanket marketing campaigns don't work anymore. They really need to be targeted to those types of things. So those agency missions, those buyer groups. We need to build together sales and marketing, these account-based strategies around program agencies and mission that has tailored content and targeted outreach. We talked about AI and automation. They're changing buyers' expectations completely. That's been something that's been around for a while, but it's really taking off. And agencies are piloting AI/ML and RPA and intelligent automation, but they still need help defining use cases. They still need education on risk and governance, and they need to have outcomes, not just have these platforms to have them as well. So growth and marketing, we need to be more consultants, not just transactional. Marketing has to help position us as a trusted innovation partner, not just a technical vendor as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. You're so on target with that, and you've done a great job today, Zhenia, talking about uh, how the marketing and sales organizations should be working together to demonstrate to the customer that you're there for them and you understand them specifically and you understand what their challenges are. And you also need to understand what the specific person is dealing with, right? What is their role? One of the things with government as well is that there are a lot of people involved. You mentioned before, it's not just a transactional sell. There is that in some parts once everything else has happened, right? If you need to educate the just so many people throughout the process, and the message needs to be specific to them. So, Julie, this is our third Marketing for Selling Effectiveness podcast. I thought it was great. I thought Zhenia did a fantastic job. So I'm excited for future shows that we're going to be presenting. I want to let people know that if their company is doing marketing and sales right together, we'd love to talk to them. Julie Murphy with Sage Communications. And of course, I'm Fred Diamond for the Institute for Effective Professional Selling. I'm still training myself on what my company is called, but we'd love to talk to you about things that you're doing. Love to feature you on the podcast if you want to talk about what you're doing, because the messages, Zhenia, that you've discussed, and my apologies if I said your name wrong 5 times. A lot of people get Fred confused. I want to thank you for the insights that you've shared through the process and how both entities, marketing and sales, need to be even more effective right now than ever before with all the things that are happening, the challenges that are facing them, how AI is playing a role. We started to touch on that towards the end. Can you give us a specific action step? You've given us so many ideas. To wrap up the show briefly, give us one specific action step that people listening to the show today must do to take their sales career to the next level.
To take your sales career to the next level, I think that just keep in mind everything, to wrap everything up, what we just talked about. First and foremost, don't think about things from a transactional perspective. Think about them from a holistic perspective. Think about, like you said, Fred, what is not just, so we're talking about agency mission, we're talking about the problems that agencies want to solve, but they're people as well. So think about the people that you're dealing with, build those trusted relationships, and and if you think about it from that perspective, not just I need to sell a capability or I need to make money, I need to close my next deal, you'll be way more successful.
All right, that is excellent. Julie, any final thoughts?
No, just that, Zhenya, you're sort of a walking billboard for that. You've built so many great
Mm.
relationships through the years, and you are sort of right in the middle of this ecosystem of just being really involved with industry associations, your collaboration with partnerships and customers, and you've always had that sort of sophisticated marketing mindset. So it's been a pleasure working with you all these years, and thanks again for all of your insight today.
Thank you both very much for the opportunity. I really enjoyed speaking with you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Once again, this is the Marketing for Selling Effectiveness sub-branded podcast of the Sales Game Changers podcast. My name is Fred Diamond.